All right, so I've been in Miami for the past 6 months. I moved here from Richmond, Virginia, in order to build up my business and create the best possible version of myself. And in the pursuit of doing that, I've been able to see firsthand what all of these people you see online that drive the supercars, have the penthouses, have the yachts, blow $20,000 like it's fucking nothing. I've been able to see that firsthand. I realized that a lot of what people say online about it being a scam, it being fraudulent, it being not what it you see online, it being a facade, a lot of that's accurate. And it's a hard pill that I had to swallow, but I realized that I want to do this in the best possible way that I can. And I moved here to start growing up my business, my mentorship business, where I help out the people that I once was, being lost, stuck, undisciplined, unmotivated, not having any direction in life on where to go. Help them overcome the struggles that I once used to, face myself, because it took me, putting myself through hell, waking up at 4:15 a.m. every single day for 9 months straight, trying to cut down any type of, dopamine, cutting down on weight, really becoming the best possible version of myself to have that discipline in order to help other people out that were once in the position that I was once in. So I moved to Miami in the pursuit of doing that. And I'm thinking how can I grow my business? How can I teach this, protocol, this method that I used in my own personal life to overcome that state and really be in a state where I can be in my own place in Miami. And I have these realizations and epiphanies that I don't want it like the other people have it. I don't want to make quick money. I don't want to, get on TikTok shop and just start fucking printing money and just that's it. Like, I want to build a fucking career. I want to build a nice skill set. I want to have discipline that translates into any other business model that I choose. So that's what I want to teach you today. How to rewire your brain to make failure impossible. And this is something that I kind of jotted down, and I hope it's going to be clear on camera. But let's go ahead and jump in. So, okay, that's a fine format. So, number one is goals, right? Let's kind of move this a little bit closer. But number one is goals. And it goes so many more layers deep on what does it mean to actually have goals. Goals doesn't mean that you want to drive a Lamborghini at 18 or 19 or 20, right? Goals means, why does it matter to you? What does it mean if you don't have this thing? What does the reality look like in a very visceral and concrete way if you have that goal? Is it quantifiable? What are the actionables you have to get towards that goal? What are affirmations that you can repeat to yourself to rewire your brain and make you understand that this is the person I have to become to hit that goal? And inversely, what it looks like not to have goals. And this is a state that I dealt with and I know very, very well, because I was a business finance major, I guess. I dropped out of college 1.5 years in, and I pursued business finance because I wanted something to do with business. I didn't know what that looked like for me, but business finance seemed like something that would be decent for me, right? So I pursued a business finance degree. And in the pursuit of doing that, I realized that I really didn't even know why I was in college. All of the lectures that I went to, all of the classes I attended, none of the stuff that I was learning actually felt applicable towards making me more money, towards creating the man that I wanted to be for myself. And, I didn't see any value in me sticking in college. And, the moment that I started to really put myself through the real world and, go to the gym, stay disciplined, that was when I understood that I can learn so much more if I just do it my own way. So that's what led me to drop out of college and take that risk, take that, entrepreneurship is all about risk taking. So that was my first initial risk that I took towards this lifestyle. So what it looks like not to have goals. And I went through this in my first year in college, and forgive me, I might be tripping over my words. I am fasting right now. It is the second day of Ramadan, and no water is really fucking up with my brain. But anyways, I'm gonna try to deliver this the best I can. So no goals, what it looks like, you are detached, you're depressed, You give into vices because those are the things that make you feel good in the moment. So you give into lust, you give into cheap dopamine, you give into sin because it makes you feel something in the moment, because you don't know what your goal is. You don't know why you have this goal. You don't know what a quantifiable goal looks like for you. So instead of actually, pursuing goals, if you have nothing like concrete, of course, everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to have financial freedom. Everyone wants to have location freedom. Everyone wants these things. But what do these things actually look like for you? Because I promise, if you go down the route, if you don't have a goal, if you're just living every single day, it feels like you're just floating mentally, like you're just mentally lost in the sauce, right? You're gonna give into the things that make you feel pleasurable up front, the things that make you feel good up front, and then you pay for it later down. Those are the things that aren't good for you, right? Those are things like going to parties. Like, you feel fine in the fucking moment. Like, of course, I love hitting, in college, I would love hitting the clubs on the weekend. But the day after, I felt like shit because it was good up front. But then that was my intuition telling me, that was God telling me that the experience that I had after the immediate pleasure was bad for me because it wasn't congruent towards that image that God set out for me, that self-actualization image that God set out for me. It wasn't congruent towards that. So that is what happens if you don't have goals. So the question that you need to ask yourself is like, why do you have the goals that you have? Pull back layers deep on why this goal is. Like, it's not, I want to go to the gym this year. It's, I want to lose X amount of pounds this year. I want to be at a X amount % of body fat. Describe in a very visceral way what that state looks like for you if you're going to the gym 5 days a week, if you are doing 2 active recovery days. Very, very specific within every single component of that desired lifestyle that you're trying to get to. From the moment that you wake up, morning routine that you do you just instantly reach for your phone, just try to get yourself going in the day, maybe hit the gym if you have time? Or do you have a very, very detailed militant schedule that you follow every single day? Do you wake up in the morning, you hydrate, you do push-ups just to get your discipline right, get your mindset right? You read affirmations that reassure the person that you're trying to become, because affirmations is not about motivation, but it's about reassuring your subconscious mind of the man that you want to become. What I mean by affirmations is that the desired state, that the person that has everything that I want, what is his thought process? Like, what does he think about the way that people think about him? Is he confident in his tonality? Is he very charismatic? Do people, look to him when he goes into a room? Very, very specific characteristic things, mindset things. Does this man reach for instant dopamine, or does he look for the most uncomfortable option first when it comes to taking his first action in the day? Very specific things, a list of affirmations you can read down and rewire your subconscious mind to reassure and reaffirm the actions that you're taking every single day on a subconscious level towards your desired state, so you can actually see yourself hit those goals. Okay, number 2 is, if you don't have systems put in place to help you hit those goals, you can never hit those goals, because your goals can never be bigger than the systems you have put in place to get you to that state. So what does that look like? Non-negotiable tasks you set up every single day. Regardless of what happens in that day, you will hit those fucking tasks. You need non-negotiable tasks that kind of break down your macro goals, right? If you have a goal, if you want to make $10,000 a month, what does that look like to you? You need to research a business model. You need to start actually taking, actionables on that business model. What is the way that you can start, making income with that business model? If you're doing an agency where you do cold calls and that's how you get new clients in, your actionables would look like doing 20 cold calls every single day. Those are actionables that move you 1% closer towards that desired state that you're trying to get of $10,000 a month with an agency, right? Because even if you get 20 no's, and when we go into self-reflection here, even if you get 20 no's, you're gonna learn from your mistakes. The more no's you get, the better you get within your sales skills. The more you're able to navigate through the tonality you use on the sales calls or the cold calls you do, or trying out different things to kind of hit a pattern interrupt within the way that you cold call someone. So no matter what, you're improving 1% daily just by hitting those non-negotiables. And that is not some big fucking task that you have to do every single day. It's not like your non-negotiable is not doing 4 hours of cardio every single day. Make it realistic. Make it something you can actually commit to. And, make it a breakdown of 5 different things that you can do. Again, if it's a $10,000 goal of, starting up an agency, starting up a business model, you want to make $10,000 with that, those 10 tasks aren't all involved with the business. They aren't all involved with the business because you are the person who runs your business. And this was my biggest mistake that I made from the jump when I started entrepreneurship, was I didn't understand that, if you gave me a business, if you gave me a working model that was making upwards of $10,000 a month, back when I had zero discipline, when I wasn't consistent, when I didn't have a good mindset, I would run that business to the ground because I wasn't the man that could handle that business. So what I had to do was create that man. So again, that looked like setting up very, very small non-negotiable tasks that I did every single day, reading 10 pages of a good book and applying the things that I learned in that book to the real world or to my business, or writing down the things that I learned in my own words. What that looked like was limiting my social media time to 30 minutes. I couldn't do 30 minutes. The way I work best is just, cancel it out completely. I deleted social media for 9 months, and that was the most, peaceful 9 months of my life, to be honest. I just didn't care what was going on in the real world. Like, I just cared about what was going on within myself. And honestly, I highly recommend you do that if you are in a state where you need the discipline, you need the consistency, you need to be able to focus on yourself. And then moving on, we have data, right? Every single action you take, you get data from that action. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, okay, let's say you're a sales rep, right? And this is in relation to the data. You're a sales rep that makes cold calls for a business-to-business offer that helps local businesses get more clients through the door. So you have a cold call script that you use, right? And you cold call 100 people. Out of those 100 people, you get 80 who don't answer the phone. You get 10 that just say straight up no. You get 5 people that say maybe, and then you get another 5 that say, yes, I'm interested in your service. How can we proceed from here? So you get 5 yeses. So that data set is in relation to that script that you use for that day compared to the next day, right? And for the second day, you use a different cold call script. And for this day, you get a completely different result where you get 10 people that say yes, you get, 10 people that say just flat out no, and then the 80 other people say they don't answer, right? So you have data sets that you go off of. In that second cold call script that you use, you can say from the data, you got 10 yeses compared to the 5 yeses on that first cold call script that you used. And you can say that, okay, number 2 worked well. Let me double down on number 2. So instead of doing 100 cold calls, I'm gonna do 200. And if you do 200, then, from the data that you got from the 100 cold calls that you did, then, you can predict that you would get 20 yeses. I hope you can see how the data kind of like, if you do something that is working well for you, you double and triple down on that thing. And then if you do something that isn't working well for you, you take it away, or maybe you test it in a different situation. So that's your systems of data, right? And then accountability. So when I was super undisciplined, when I didn't have any form of structure, any form of accountability, I was posting on social media every single morning. I don't care how cringe this was. I literally got, my hometown friends just looking at my stories on IG when I was, I posted my push-ups at 4 a.m. every single morning because I committed myself to a 4:15 a.m. wake up. Even though no one was holding a gun to my head saying, wake up this day, it was a matter of having other people looking at my story, just keeping me accountable. And, I would literally get burning anxiety in my chest every single morning I would wake up. And I know this sounds bad in a health aspect, but this is what I needed at the time to build that discipline. And I would get burning anxiety. I would get nightmares saying that, I would, have a nightmare that I missed my 4:15 a.m. wake up because I was that scared of not being a man to my word, and the fear of other people seeing that I wasn't posting that day, even though no one was holding me accountable, even though no one cared that I was waking up at 4:15 a.m. every single day. So that was my form of accountability. Maybe have one of your boys who you actually open up with what you're struggling with, and say, I'm committing to 30 days of not smoking any weed. So with accountability as well, this is a really good story that happened when I was living in Richmond, Virginia, right? So I just moved to my apartment in Richmond, and I parked my car in the parking garage, but the way that my car tint is, I have the front windshield tinted, right? So I didn't have, you have to have a car parking tag hanging on your windshield, your rear view mirror, right? And because the tint was so dark, they couldn't see the tag. So I woke up, the next day, and my car was just gone. I was like freaking the fuck out. I'm like, how did I get my car towed here? I live here. And I called up the tow company. I'm like, do you have this car? They said yes. And then I called up my apartment. I'm like, why did you tow my car? And they said, oh, we couldn't see the tag. And I'm like, maybe check the plate or something. It's not my fault that you couldn't see my tag. Like, my car is just like that. So this wasn't really my fault, but it was. And the learning lesson that I took from that, even though that I was not completely in the wrong, and any situation that I have, it is much easier to take complete accountability over the thing, because that allows me to have control over my situation. That allows me to control the outcome that I want, because I took accountability. And just to give you more perspective on what I mean by this, if I'm driving through an intersection and it's a green light, and all of a sudden a car comes from the opposite side and they're running a red light, right? And my car gets hit. I don't care. I was definitely not in the wrong because I had a green light and I got hit by someone who was ignoring the traffic laws, but it's my fault. It's my fault that I chose to drive that day. It's my fault that I chose to, drive through a green light, even though I should have understood that there was another car coming, which I'm exaggerating right here, but just to say that it's much easier to operate from the frame of mind that everything is my fault, instead of thinking that the world is out to get me and play a victim mindset. That is the biggest thing. Avoid a victim mindset by all costs. So last thing I want to touch on right here is KPIs. KPIs means key performance indicator. What is your key performance indicator towards hitting those goals? If you're trying to do a cold call in an agency and make $10,000 a month with that business, then what do those KPIs look like? It looks like the amount of cold calls you do, the amount of time you spend cold calling, the amount of pickups you have, the amount of times you get past the gatekeeper, the amount of times that you get a yes to a book appointment, and then the amount of times that you close a deal. Those are your KPIs for your gym, right? The amount of times that you spend the amount of time you spend in the gym in the day. How many macros what was my macros for today compared to what my goal is? And then maybe it's walking 30 minutes today, or maybe it's, hitting the treadmill. So those are KPIs, and I would make a Google spreadsheet. Again, this is something that I help all my clients out on one-on-one. I have an entire data set that I give all my clients, and it's a very, very good accountability system. And it's a good way that all my clients just keep everything in track, and I build it out towards their exact needs. So I have some guys who run, who are sales reps who do door-to-door sales. I have some guys who have an agency. I have some guys who are literally just in college. So, specific systems built out to their needs. And then the last thing I want to touch on before I end off this video is, honestly, the lack of water is getting to me. But self-reflection, right? Because you can have these goals. You can have goals of making $10,000 a month. You can have goals of becoming the best possible version of yourself, but it changes over time. You see, the thing that I hate about society, the thing that I hate about the standard education system is that it expects you to choose your path for the next 40 years as soon as you get out of high school. Bro, I don't even know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. So why would you expect me to understand what I'm gonna do in the next 40 years? So it takes self-reflection to constantly, because your insights, your observations, your paradigm, how you perceive the world, it changes over time. I'm sure you understand that from just growing up in this world. I once wanted a monster truck at 2 years old. I don't want a monster truck anymore. It changes over time. So it's important to analyze what those goals are and do they change over time, because I'm gonna give you something right here that I wish I asked myself when I started making goals initially, but do I want this because I want it for myself, or do I want this goal because I want others to see that I have it? When you ask yourself that question, then, the truth comes out on what you actually want in this world. And I realized that I need to reject materialism as much as I can. That is one thing about Miami that taught me very well, is that materialism is such a scam. Nice restaurants is such a scam. Nice cars is such a scam. Penthouses is such a scam. But building up wealth so you can leave an impact on other people, that is what I care about. So what that looks like is journaling, right? So, just an example, and journaling can only be effective if you let it be effective for you. But I used to journal out my 5 non-negotiable tasks every single day when I woke up, and I checked it off throughout the day as a form of accountability and as a form of a system. I just journaled out like what I was thinking in real time, just like a brain dump of what I'm thinking, just so I can verbalize my thoughts and kind of conceptualize where my headspace is at a little bit better. And then maybe like, or maybe like a form of gratitude, so you can kind of ground yourself in the present moment, because you are so blessed just for being able to watch this video right here and get this education right here. Maybe a affirmation statement as well, to reassure your subconscious mind that you're living vicariously through this desired state that you have set up for yourself. Next thing is adjustments. Again, your goals change over time. Your paradigm, how you perceive the world, it changes over time. So adjustments means that on a weekly or monthly basis, or, in my opinion, do both, you ask yourself, do these goals still matter to me? Or you ask yourself, like, is this system still effective towards hitting my bigger goal? So adjustments that you make based off the data that you have right here. And then the last thing are SOPs, right? So that looks like a weekly or monthly review. Again, my opinion, do both of what does my finances look like right now? Are my goals still congruent towards what I actually want? How is my relationship status? How is my spiritual status? Very, very deep intellectual questions that, bring you to understand that, you are progressing, because at times you can get so caught up with the micro analysis of your day-to-day, your day-to-day life. You can't really seem like you're moving forward that much, but in a macro perspective, you're moving up miles ahead, right? One thing that I want to tell you right here is that you will always overestimate what you do in a 6-month time frame, but compared to what you do in a 12-month time frame, you will underestimate the work that you do. So from a 30,000 foot perspective of your life right now, you are making progress. So it's important to put SOPs in place to make sure that you actually understand from a macro perspective that you're moving the needle forward, right? So that took a lot out of me, but yeah, my head is fucking light right now because just no water, no food, but it's all for a greater purpose. Happy Ramadan to anyone who is fasting as well. It's a form of self-control and discipline towards a higher power for me. But yeah, I'm going to edit this video, and I appreciate y'all watching. If you took some value from it, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. And if you want to talk with me one-on-one about how we can build these exact systems towards your personal needs, then go ahead. There's a book call link in the description of this video. So I look forward to speaking to y'all there, but I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.